I'd like to invite Trevor Lai up to the stage, and he's going to be moderating a couple of our tech chats. Trevor is a talk show host with Thoughtful China, and he's also an entrepreneur with his own studio, right?
Up Studios.
Up Studios. So, Trevor, thank you for being here. You can take a seat here. And I'd like to invite the first entrepreneur that he's going to be interviewing is Wang, who's the founder of Liulishuo. And I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, but you can come up here and correct me. Thank you very much. Uh, was it okay? All right, thank you. Here, you guys can sit next to me. Okay. Okay, good. Take it away, Trevor.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rebecca. And Yi, thanks for coming on today. Basically, these talks are informal, but I hope in-depth looks into startups at various phases and really trying to answer a lot of the questions that I think the entrepreneurs in this room would be interested in. So, Yi, I guess give us your elevator pitch on what Liulishuo is, and then we'll start from there.
Okay, so maybe first show of hands, how many people here in this room have heard of Liulishuo before this event? Okay, we've got maybe one like fifth of the room. Okay, so we have a long way to go. Anyway, Liulishuo is a mobile language learning app that helps Chinese to improve their spoken English with fun in their spare time. That's basically what it is.
Cool. And when did you found the company?
Uh, Almost exactly 2 years ago, September 3rd, 2012.
Okay, and I understand recently this year you closed your Series A.
That's correct, in June.
But I also know a little bit about the background before that. And what I'd like to talk about and hear about is when you first started the company, it was yourself and you had two co-founders. Is that right?
That's correct.
And when you guys first had the concept, did you already envision that you would be building the company up to a certain point and closing your Series A within a couple of years? Or how did that whole process go when you first came with the seed of Liulishuo?
So yeah, so that would like I need to go a little bit back, right? I was a product manager at Google from 2009 to 2011. Then I thought, it's getting slow, and I want to do something more fun. So I moved back. I was working at a display ads company, building online ad exchanges and that kind of stuff. One day, an engineer in my team came to me over lunch break, and he said, "Hey, Yi, your English is decent, and I'm having a hard time improving my English, especially spoken English. I paid a lot of money, went to I won't name the company, but like a very famous offline language school, and I didn't get what I expected to get. Then that was before the Labor Day break. And if anyone here in this room remembered, over the Labor Day break in 2012, an app called Changba took off. Okay, it was like one of the most popular karaoke app of that year, I guess. And literally over just a weekend, that struck me. I'm like, yeah, now people are getting so used to singing into their phones and chatting with people on WeChat. Why can't they practice English, right? And seems it's still a pretty big market for that. So that was the idea where it came from. And then then I started to think what would be the key user experience a mobile app that helps people to improve English should have. So I thought that has to be fun. Otherwise, too many other distractions on the phone. So, but if you want to keep people engaged, then you need to be interactive. You need to give people feedback. Oh, scoring. So that's how I found one of my college classmate and who was a research scientist at Google in California back then. I said, hey, Hui, you should just come and do this together with me. This is really what's next.
So essentially gamifying the learning process.
That's right. We think gamification is really one key aspect of great online language learning.
Okay, and then fast forward a little bit, and at some point you started to attract attention from investors looking at your company, and talk a little bit about what it was like when you got your first offer sheet.
Yeah, so the first offer was even before we started the company. I'm a very good personal friend of one of the first generation successful internet entrepreneurs. And he said, hey, yeah, I know you're doing this and this sounds interesting. Here's, I want to give you just $1 million, 20%, go and do it. And I thought, yeah, it's great, but I think we were so confident in this idea, and we wanted to really have skin in the game. So we said, okay, we were really lean back then when we launched the first product with 3.5 people and a couple of interns. So we said, okay, we're gonna, put in our money and launch the product, and we'll then raise our first round of financing. So we turned down that offer.
When you turned down the $1 million before you started the company, did you ever think like this is a soft no, like as in no, not right now, or was it like no, we're going to go
It's
ahead
definitely
and
a
do
soft no, right? And I'm still a very good friend of him. So.
this? Because I would imagine a lot of the entrepreneurs in this room are probably shaking their heads, thinking, "I'd like
Yeah,
to have a friend offer me."
it's risky, and with a team of decent background, if you just tell a story, you can pretty much get a term sheet, right? But if you turn the black box into a white box, right? Once you launch a product, it's a double-edged sword, right? If it doesn't go well, then you can't really just sell by telling the story anymore. So yeah, it's risky.
Was there a certain point when you were launching the product then that you ever doubted or had, some concerns, or maybe there was like a mini crisis, as you were developing the product where you ever felt like, that might have been a really huge risk?
Uh, Definitely, there have been a lot. So now my tolerance is pretty high, right? So yeah, I still remember like we were having a really hard time finding our first designer. Like a designer is a like a scarce resource anywhere, but especially like when we were starting out back then. So the first product, which was recommended by Apple in the first week after we launched, was designed and yeah, it was designed by 3 interns from a industrial design major from a local college. They've never designed a mobile app before, and they were having problem actually cutting a circle as a circle. When I look at first, I always see there seems to be a couple of pixels missing, and I zoom in, and yes, you cut it like a line, so you're missing a few pixels. That was like the kind of difficulties we were facing back then. So, but it all turned out to be okay. Like we didn't have much choice. We just went with the interns who are willing to get on the team and spend 2 full days within the week to work with us. Now, obviously, we have a pretty awesome design team, but that was the time when we actually got started.
And how big is your team now?
We're about 40 people.
And when you closed the Series A, it was at a, I would presume, significantly larger valuation than that initial $1 million check.
That's correct. And we were very lucky to be working with some top VCs. Our lead investors were NR, IDG, and GGV, and both of them came in like very early in the process. We were actually the first pure China team to get an offer from YC. That was for the summer class of 2013, and we ended up not going because we already got a term sheet from the 2 funds, and they were investing at a very small amount, not because they don't have the money, because we didn't want a bigger check, but they still decided to invest despite the early stage. So we were very grateful, and this past June, they decided to put in a lot more money and to give us the ammunitions to grow.
So one of the questions a lot of entrepreneurs, ask me when they're talking about building their businesses is when you're pitching to an IDG or GGV. I mean, obviously, the preparation that has to go into a very short and concise story about your company and your product is critical. So for yourself, obviously, you'd had some experience with talking to investors about Liulishuo. But when you were approached by such large and renowned firms, was it a different type of pressure, and how did you prepare for that sort of pitching, in a different way?
Actually, I didn't have a lot of pressure when I meet with investors. I think the biggest challenge is always convincing myself that I'm working on the right things. And then I got a lot of practice by convincing my teammates to join me. Right? First a few my core team members, they came from like around the country. Some of them they brought with their like one of our earliest RS engineers. He came with his wife who was pregnant at the time. They moved like, all their belongings, everything from Beijing, Huilongguan to Shanghai, right? And another designer of ours, he lived in Hangzhou for 7 years. He moved his whole family to Hangzhou, to Shanghai. So like that kind of practice, if you can convince someone to really bet their next few years with you, to spend with you, I think the rest is actually just repeating myself.
Why were they willing to? I mean, a lot of companies in Shanghai, a lot of my friends who run companies in Shanghai, worry about their staff jumping from, Puxi to Pudong, a company there. So how did you get people to move from all the way across China? What convinced them? What was the hook in your company, which was still relatively small, to be able to cause them to change their lives?
Yeah, I think that's a repeated question, and I don't have an innovative answer. It's just setting a dream, right? So you need to like tell them why this idea is going to be awesome, and why it is their talent is so critical to the success of this journey. So I think I'll just give one example, right? One of our first iOS design, engineers, he had been building education, especially language learning apps for a couple of years. He put in after his initial startup failed and his team members all went to other ventures. He started to do his own freelancing, living in Huilongguan, uh, where a lot of engineers live in Beijing, and building apps for a couple of years, putting more than 100,000 RMB of his own money, and he was in debt. And he had at one point uh, 5 to 7 apps ranking very high, like in the top 60 or 70 apps in the education category in App Store. But he said, when he saw our app, he said he went to Hangzhou when we were at Hangzhou back then. He said, I think I reached my point. That's the best that I can do as a one-man team. So I like your product. I think it's cool, and I want to join you guys, and we can really together we can realize my dream, which I think is also your dream. So he made the decision to join us within 24 hours. So
Wow.
yeah.
So it sounds like you're drawing a very passionate sort of base of users, and in some cases, users that become team members, which sounds, like some other language learning apps like Duolingo, for example. So as you look at some of these larger global players, how do you see them? Do you see them as competition? I mean, obviously they could expand into, English for Chinese,
They already did.
speakers. And also, Playco is very well respected. I personally use Playco a lot, and I think it's fantastic. So, how do you look at these other companies in your competitive space?
I always view them as first, co-players and co-creators, co-promoters of this new space, right? So I think uh, this market, uh, enabled by mobile, is so big, so much bigger than what's already out there. I view everyone as like we are working together to educate the market. It's the education problem, right? So people don't today. If you ask anyone, he will say, "Oh, learning on mobile, it's kind of fun, but yeah, I'll go pay the 20,000 RMB to go to that school offline, right?" So they don't think they can actually make this as their like, not main vehicle, but main way of really improve their English, right? So we think together we need to educate the audience and make them believe that learning on mobile is not only convenient, fun, but also effective and it's serious. So both Duolingo and Playco, I think they are doing great. They have their own strength of the product, but we think we understand. First of all, we understand better about the Chinese audience, and we have a different approach. For example, we have one of the most active language learning community on mobile in China, and we didn't have that a year ago. So we started off a very simple like BBS type of feature, and now it's getting more and more users as the time goes by. So that we just think different teams have different backgrounds. They come in from different angles. They are trying to educate the market and create a bigger market. That's good for everyone.
Great.
Great. Any questions from the audience? Okay, there's one.
How do you make money? If you're not making money now, how will you make money in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. So we've been making a little bit of money by selling a very small number of paid courses. Okay, for example, we have one course that's selling for 99 kwai. It has 90 very short monologues helping you prepare for English job interviews. Okay, and we've sold a very good number of them and making quite some money. So that's just like some small experiment we've been doing, and later on we'll be offering more online courses, connecting users potentially with teachers, right? So different ways that we can be making money. But at the end of the day, we think if people can be spending a lot of time on this product, seriously improving and practicing improving the English, the monetization, the business model, the monetization problem will be solved by itself. Like I like the model, Google's model, which is focus on the users, all else will follow. Okay, so like I was showing Trevor before the session that the to a new friend. If you look at our app today, and we have a daily ranking, yesterday the top user spent 4 hours and 41 minutes recording and practicing recording on the app. Right, the record we've seen so far is like 11 hours or something. That's net recording time in a day. So if we are getting a lot of users to spend a lot of time on the app, we're sure money will come to us. Thanks.
As speaking of money, we have his venture capitalist here in the audience. Joshua, where are you? There he is. Oh, you want to stand up? Well, this is where half of the money came from. And Joshua was going to be on our venture capital deal maker panel a little bit later on, so we'll be hearing more about this. Russell, do you have a question? Russell Flannery from Forbes. Just wait for the mic, please.
Hi, how do you see the mobile strategy of some of the listed companies in the education space evolving, and how do you anticipate surviving against that as these bigger listed companies put more money, like everybody else is doing in China, into mobile?
Very good question. Obviously, you can expect that question to be asked by many investors before they put in money, right? So the answer is we can't stop them from throwing money at problems. What we can do is to be focused and even more focused on what we are good at. We are the only team in the world, as far as we know, that combines two things. One, we have our core speech evaluation engine. That's entire our IP, okay? And we've been continuously innovating on them. And now we have the world's largest database of Chinese speaking English. Okay, so that, as you can see, I don't want to throw the big data buzzword, but yes, that's a lot of data, and we can do a lot with it. And the second thing is we combine the core technology with consumer-facing products. And so far we've launched 4 apps, 1 main app, 3 smaller apps. every single one of them was featured by Apple in the App Store. If you walk into any Apple store, offline Apple store throughout China, and pick up an iPhone, you can see our app pre-installed for demo purposes. So we are very confident in our product and technology capabilities. We don't think any of the big guys have that, and we're happy to be competing with them. That's number one. Number two, they've got a lot of baggages coming from Google. I know that, right? Any company, any big company, even Google, has that. So we think we can move faster, we can be more focused, and we are not short of cash. So we're ready.
Okay, good. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to our next tech chat, but let's give you a round of applause, please.
Thanks.
Thank you.